Hello chess fans and welcome to Chess5, and today we are going to see a very interesting game between Magnus Carlsen versus Vladimir. Not Vladimir Kramnik but Vladimir Fedoseev. And this the basic purpose of showing you this game here is today I'm going to discuss the Caro-kann defense, and I'm going to show you how to crush the Caro-kann defense variation with the white pieces. And we are going to learn how to crush the Caro-kann defense by looking at a game which is very impressive. And the game is between Magnus Carlsen and Vladimir Fedoseev. The game is going to be very interesting. The game was played on 2021, Russia, Krasnaya, Polyana, Sochi. The game is going to be very interesting. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Chess Vibes. So, Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces and Vladimir Fedoseev with the black pieces. So let's check it out what happened in the game quickly. So, Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces started with 1 e4, and we have c6 by black, obviously because we are going to see the Caro-kann defense, d4, d5, and we have the advanced variation in the Caro-kann by playing e5, bishop f5, and now we have the c4 by white. So basically, I usually play bishop g3, exchanging this key bishop, but Magnus played c4. We have e6, knight c3, bishop to b4, capture, and we have a queen into d5. The main point of capturing the pawn with the queen was, after capturing the pawn with the queen, you cannot capture the queen with the knight because the knight is pinned. And the main point of capturing the pawn with the queen was, now the d4 pawn is a backward pawn. It can never push ahead because the c6 and the e6 pawn are covering the d5 square. So that was the main point of capturing the d5 pawn with the queen. So after queen to d5, we have knight to e2 by white, queen d8, a3 by white, kicking the bishop from the b4 square. We have bishop a5, knight to g3, hitting the bishop on f5. We have knight e7, so black is ready to give the bishop for the knight. We have bishop f4, not giving the knight so easily. Bishop to g6, and now we have h4 by Magnus Carlsen. So this is the problem. This is the position where black gets stuck. When white tries to play h4 in this position where black bishop is on g6, black always gets stuck because now the serious threat is to play h5 in the position, hitting the bishop, and the bishop on g6 would be in a very large amount of trouble. So after h4, we have h6 by black, creating the bishop to go on h7. We have h5, bishop h7, queen g4, and after queen g4, the queen on g4 is hitting the pawn on g7, and the queen on g4 is protecting the pawn on d4 as well. So after playing queen g4, black played king f8, protecting the pawn, and also now black can't castle anymore because black have moved the king. A better reply at the place of playing king f8 could have been to play bishop to f5 in the position. Playing king f8 was a blunder in the position. Bishop f5 was the right move, hitting the queen. If you try to capture the knight with, if you try to capture the bishop with the knight, after knight into f5, simply protecting the pawn on g7, so there is no worry. But if you try to not to capture the bishop, and if you go for the g7 pawn, hitting the rook on h8 as well, then I'm going to play rook g8 with the black pieces, or even playing rook h7 is also pretty fine. After rook to g8, I'm hitting the queen. So if you try to capture my pawn on h6 with the queen, I'm going to come up with a very strong move, which is queen into d4, which is also a very natural move. After playing queen into d4, I'm hitting the bishop on c4. So if you try to defend the bishop on c4 by playing bishop to e2, I'm going to play now bishop into c3 with a check, capturing the knight. So if you try to capture the bishop back with the pawn, I'm going to play queen into c3, giving a check and hitting the rook, and white is over. It's completely winning position for black. Black is just a whole rook up, and it's completely winning. So that was the reason bishop f5 should have been played, but at the place of playing bishop f5, Fedoseev perhaps didn't saw the line and he played king f8. protecting the pawn. After playing king f8, this was the blunder which gives a clear edge to Magnus Carlsen, and we know Magnus Carlsen, he's not going to let the position go when it comes to handy. And actually playing king f8 in this position is very much natural, because playing bishop f5 is definitely a very hard move to find. After king f8, we have castle by white by Magnus Carlsen, knight to d7, knight to e4, so definitely an idea to play knight to e6 at some point, d6 at some point, hitting the pawn on b7 and also putting a large amount of pressure on the f7 pawn. We have bishop c7 covering the square on d6, bishop to a2, knight to f5, and now we have a trade. And after black captured with the bishop. If you try to capture the knight with the pawn, because it hits the queen as well as the knight, and the pawn is protected by the bishop, but it's winning for white. White is going to play queen f3, and you cannot capture the knight because queen f7 is a checkmate protected by the bishop. So that was the reason Fedoseev doesn't want it to just make his pawn structure bad, and that's why he captured with the bishop. After capturing with the bishop, we have queen f3, queen to e7, knight to g3, hitting the bishop. We have bishop to h7, queen to g4, and now we have c5 by black. So black finally decided to break through the position. We have bishop d2 by Magnus, rook to d8, and now we have f4 by Magnus by white. He's going for the full-on attack by playing. The idea is definitely to play f5 in the position. The rook file is open, and now black king must be feeling very bad. After f4, we have knight to b6. Perhaps the idea is to put the knight on d5. After playing knight b6, we have bishop to c3 by white, giving some support to the pawn on d4. We have knight to d5. If black tries to capture the pawn with the pawn hitting the bishop and the pawn is protected by the rook, then white is going to play bishop b4, and it hits the queen and the king, and the queen is lost. You have to play bishop d6, give up the bishop, but still it's completely losing. So that was the reason black cannot capture the pawn, so he played knight to d5. And now white finally went for the f5 move, a very powerful move. Idea is to definitely capture the pawn on e6. Perhaps push can be also definitely a nice plan. So we have knight to e3 by black, forking the queen as well as the rook. White played queen f3, and black captured the pawn. If you try to capture the rook on f1 with the knight, then I'm going to play rook into f1. And after rook into f1, there are many threats for white. White is planning to capture the pawn on e6 now, and you can't stop it. You can't capture the pawn back because the king is attacked. So if you try to move the king to g8, then I'm going to play f6, a very powerful move. If you try to capture, I'm not going to capture the pawn. I can capture actually, but a better move could be to play queen g4 check. And after playing queen f8, I'm going to play e into f6 now. And now if you try to move the queen, I'm going to play queen g7 check, which is a very deadly check, capture the rook, and it's game over for black. So that was the reason knight into f1 was not played, and we have knight into f5, capturing of the pawn. We have knight into f5, bishop into f5, and now we have d5 by white. Just going for the attack, just trying to open up the position, definitely, because the f7 pawn could be a target in the future for white, because the bishop on a2 is doing nothing. So let's try to open up the position, create some weaknesses on the f7 pawn. So very nice idea by Magnus, pushing up the pawn to d5. We have bishop b6, bishop to c4, not allowing black to push the pawn, give a threat, a very large amount of threat check, because the queen to h4 is also coming, which could be very risky for white. That's why bishop c4. We have king g8, d6 now, hitting the queen, queen to h4, hitting the bishop. So white played b3, protecting the bishop on c4. We have rook d7, queen e2, queen to g4, going for the queen trade, which was a bad idea for black. At the place of going for the queen trade, a better reply would have been to play bishop g4, hitting the queen on e2. And after playing queen e4, black can capture the h5 pawn, and it's an equal position. Actually, black have been able to get the equal position, but bishop g4 was not played, and black played queen g4. Obviously black is in a big pressure. Oh, black is facing the world champion, and castle is broken. White is having more space. The bishop pair, definitely it's already very hard to play psychologically. That's why king queen g4 was played, and now we have rook into f5, the main move of the game. I just captured the bishop for the rook. We have queen into f5, rook to f1, hitting the queen. Black played queen g5, bishop to d2, hitting the queen, and now we have queen d8. That was the trick, giving an exchange and kicking the black queen back to his area by putting the queen on d8. And after playing queen d8, white played queen g4. And after queen g4, you can see, although white is an exchange down, but just look at white's attack. It's just tremendous. White is having more space. Black can't do anything with his two rooks. It's just completely stuck, and white is just planning for a huge amount of attack. The plan could be to capture the pawn on e6 for now. So black played a6. We have rook into f7. Wow. Is bishop into e6 working? Bishop into e6 is not working because there comes a very nasty move, which is c4 check. And so c4 check, king h1. Black can play f into e6, and if you try to capture the pawn back with the queen, there is this king h7 idea, and nothing is working at all, and white has to make a repetition, and it's a draw. That's why bishop into e6 is not working. But we have another fantastic move by Magnus, which was winning. Rook into f7. Wow. After rook into f7, black played king into f7. If you try to capture the rook with the rook, still queen into e6 is winning. The only move attacks the rook, and after playing queen f8, giving some support, there comes d7, and it's completely winning. It's game over. If you try to play something else like bishop c7, because the bishop was attacked, now I'm going to play queen e8, and everything is just destroyed completely. I'm already going to make a queen, and how will you be able to stop it? It's completely over. So that was the reason rook into f7 was not played, and we have king into f7. Now we have queen into e6 check, king f8, queen to f5 check, king to e8, queen g6 check, king f8, queen f5 check, king e8, queen g6 check. Magnus just repeated the position once, and now we have e6 going for the attack, hitting the rook. Black played queen f6, going for the queen trade. If you try to capture the pawn on d6, you cannot, because it's queen f7, game over. That's why queen f6, asking for a queen trade. White simply captured the rook on d7. Black traded the queen. We have bishop to d8 by black, bishop to e6, and after h5, king f2, h4, bishop g4, b5, king f3, b4, ab4, cb4. After cb4, on the move number 49, Vladimir Fedoseev with the black pieces resigned the game after playing c into b4, capturing of the pawn, and Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces won the game. The reason Vladimir Fedoseev resigned the game with the black pieces was, if you look the rook on h8 closely, please tell me how will the rook on h8 will escape. First of all, you cannot. The king is having no space. Every square is covered by the pawns. White pawns are just tremendously powerful, covering every square for the king. Nowhere to go, and the rook is also having no square to go. Everything is covered by the bishop. And the white plan is just too simple. White is planning to just bring the king, capture the pawn, and push his remaining pawn, and he's going to win the game. Black can't stop the pawn. It's game over. Or even he can go to something like this and capture the bishop, or he can push the pawn, and it's game over. So that was the reason, and this was the fantastic game played by the Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, to beat Vladimir Fedoseev. The game was very interesting. I liked it pretty much, and if you also liked it, then please like to the video as well, because By liking the video will just get more views and come to other recommendations. And also don't forget to share the video so that other people who are also watching the video will also get to know how to crush the Caro-kann defense. And it's a great game played by Magnus Carlsen and also Vladimir Fedoseev. So this was the interesting game. So if you guys like the video, then please like to my video, and if you're new to my channel, then please subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to post videos like this. So I'm going to come up with something more interesting next time. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching chess fights.